Welcome, everybody, to the Sapien podcast. Today, I am so lucky to have Will Reusch with us. Will has quite an online following. He has an amazing social media page. I think one of the best follows out there. And I'm not trying to flatter you. I honestly feel it's educational. It's super fun to listen to you talk and kind of go through ideas. Will is a high school teacher. He shares ideas about politics, about religion, about your mental health, about your self-help, about education system and the challenges the young people in our country face. So Will, I mean, that's how I've discovered you. Tell everyone, like, well, how do you see yourself? Some of your accomplishments.
Yeah, it's really great to be here. I'm a high school teacher. I mean, that's essentially, by trade, I'm a high school teacher. This is my 18th year in the classroom teaching high school. And about 2013, 14, 15, definitely 2016, I just started to see certain trends in society. I teach social studies, so it's a lot of like government and history and things like that. And then even I've taught like sociology classes, psychology classes and things. And I was just watching what was happening in society, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of people in echo chambers not willing to talk to each other. And it kind of went against everything that I was teaching in my classroom. So I started addressing the culture war stuff in my classroom and coming home and telling my wife about it, who has a social media presence, and she does like online marketing and things like that. So she was like, bring your classroom online. And it was uncomfortable for me to like hold my phone up and talking to it. I didn't have a social media presence at all or anything like that. And I was like, I'm dealing with 16-year-olds who generally don't want to be in school, don't want to hear what I'm having to say. I was like, I don't know if people want to hear it, but I put it online and started just sharing my classroom. I thought of it as expansion of my classroom. And I actually got over my own ego about like looking foolish talking to my phone. And I was like, this is my classroom. Because I'll be a fool. I'll be a dancing monkey in front of my kids, just to get them to listen. So once that happened, then it just started to hit. And a couple of like more prominent people, started to find it and then sharing it, and kind of grew from there. Same concept with a podcast. It's called Cylinder Radio. And it's all about viewpoint diversity, because as this stuff was happening, I was like really curious about these different people. It's when the transgender kind of activism stuff. And I was like, wow, I haven't never sat down and had an actual like long form conversation with a transgender person. Let's just do it. So I created this podcast almost as like an excuse to talk to interesting people. Because if I say I have a podcast, it's not weird for me to reach out and want to talk to them. And we're at like 150 episodes. You've been on that as well, talking about medicine. And that's kind of where I'm at now. Eventually going to shift into scaling what I do in the classroom to get more people into like the homeschool world and everything like that. But it's been a wild ride these past 5 years.
It's so interesting. You always mentioned that concept of viewpoint diversity. I think that's a great term for people to think about, because, that's the word that describes what we all need to remember is how to communicate with each other. Viewpoint diversity is just accepting that people have different perspectives, and that if you disagree with someone else, that doesn't invalidate each other's opinion, right? Like, you get to disagree. You get to have a thoughtful conversation, and you don't have to come up with this like conclusion. I'm right, you're right. There's no right. Most of the topics you're talking about, gender issues, social issues, government issues, right? There's no answer. There's not an answer. That's the whole challenge. And then everyone in healthcare, in social issues, they want to put one word or one sentence or like wrap you up in a bubble. I even just asked you to do it. I'm like, hey, wrap yourself up in a bubble. And you couldn't, because if you're a thoughtful person, if you're an intellectual person, if you're a person that wants to progress themselves forward in this life, you can't accept that you know everything, or that, the science is out. I'm going to keep saying that on this. Like, the science is not out on anything. I'm sorry, guys. Science doesn't work that way. The scientific process is a constant changing concept, constant changing theory. And that's true for everything you teach these kids. Like, it's a constant moving target. And we've become afraid to follow that target. We've become so scared of pissing someone off, of getting deplatformed, of whatever retribution or fear. It's all fear-based, and that has limited our ability to speak. How do you navigate that? Because the topics on your channel, and again, everyone, please check it out, because it's, even if you don't agree with Will, it's such an authentic and sort of transparent cognitive process that you're sharing with people. And it's amazing because you're sharing it with the kids, and I know how important that is and how transformational having an educator like you at an early point in your life is. So how do you navigate, I'm sure family, parents, kids that get upset when they hear something, your wife's friends hear something, whatever. How do you navigate that?
Honestly, I just keep leaning into the concept of curiosity. I found myself in this intellectual world. I go to these conferences with a bunch of college professors. The school that I teach at now, it's a high school, but almost everyone has their PhD in this specific area. So they have a PhD in like a specific kind of history or in chemistry or something. And I just have this bachelor's degree from a state school in Pennsylvania. So it's like, how can I hang with these smart people, so to speak? And very early on, I just realized that I'm just going to lean into curiosity. I'm not going to pretend to know things I don't know, and just ask a lot of questions. And you do that all the time over the course of years, and you sit back and you go, wow, I know a lot of stuff because I've been so curious the whole time. So when someone's upset, I lean into curiosity. When someone has pushback, I lean into curiosity. And that's going to be my ace over and over and over again. My ego is not attached to having the right ideas. I'm not the sage on the stage like, I know this. It's I want to get to the best ideas. And if your ego is connected with, your identity, I should say, is connected with, I want to get to the best ideas, not that I have the best ideas, then when someone proves you wrong, you're like, thank you. Oh my gosh, you just let me get rid of a bad idea that I had before. And so you're constantly looking for disconfirmation, not confirmation bias. You're constantly trying to challenge your own ideas. And I found it to be really, really useful. I think people tune in not to say like, oh, Will has this figured out, but like, let me see his process for trying to get there. And then they always are offering like, well, you're missing this. And sometimes I am, sometimes I address it and things like that. But I think that's the best way. And I tell people that all the time. It's like when people are upset, it's like, instead of asking a rhetorical question, how could you possibly vote for this person? Or how could you possibly take that stance? Turn it into an actual question. And with like really a genuine sense of trying to understand why they could take the stances that they do if they're so different than your own.
Right. And that concept of curiosity, I present it as open-mindedness, right? Because when you're saying you're curious, you're asking questions, you're just saying that you're not going to pretend that you know the answer already. Even if you have an opinion that's matured and formed, you're just going to ask more questions. I feel like the podcast community, the long-form conversation community, that's what it's all about, right? You were mentioning Eric Weinstein. For me, obviously, like so many, Joe Rogan opened the doors to the whole concept of podcasting and long-form conversation. And, why is he so successful? He just asks the same question. He asks questions over and over. He'll says his opinion, and then knowing that the other person that he has on doesn't agree with him, he waits and he'll challenge them. And, he has his biases, but that's what you remind me of. You have your opinions and perspectives, but you are willing to have that conversation. It's so important. How do you think the kids, like, I'm an adult doctor, so I see 15 and over and very few people like under younger than 20s. How do you think there's a big change in generational shift in thinking, with all of the social media, with all of the overwhelming media content and sort of pummeling us with ideas, whether you like them or not? Like, how are your kids dealing with it? Are they open to you? Are they excited by you? Or are they pretty much like going down that, narrative that they're sold on TV?
I think that they're pretty malleable. That's why I like the younger people, is because you can still kind of get them like to crack open a mind to other ideas. That's not even, it's like soft spots on a baby's head, like there still is a lot of room to grow it. So I find it actually a lot easier dealing with kids or dealing with teenagers. I deal with teenagers, mostly 16, 17, 18-year-olds. I find it far easier than dealing with adults because even if their identity is along some line of like, political stance, it could be about like racial justice. It could be about like being pro-life, pro-choice, whatever it is. It's not that solid yet because we're only developing it for at most, 5 years, where you might be dealing with someone in their 40s and they've had this as their identity for 25 years. If I have a vegan student and I offer some alternatives to like why, veganism isn't maybe what you think it is, like how solid can their identity be if they've only had it for a year and a half compared to someone who's had it their whole life? So I actually find it a lot easier, and that's part of why I dig it so much.
And what about like since this the whole COVID pandemic, right? I've noticed a dramatic change in my patients and everyone who comes to me. They used to come to me looking for sort of this alternative approach to medicine, right? And it was usually just nutrition and lifestyle medicine. Let's talk about food. Let's talk about exercise. Let's talk about, stress management strategies, the basics. And it's really, really changed. Over the last 3 years, I'm seeing people that have completely started to reject traditional Western medicine thought. There are people that got every single vaccine ever their whole life and vaccinated their kids with every single vaccine and are now not just questioning, but are vehemently opposed to it and are pretty much quiet about it until we're in the room. And then they're like, what do you think? And start opening up to me about it. And it's people that I've known for years, long before the pandemic, that were completely not that way. And it doesn't seem to be along political lines, right? So people are really open to me in clinic, Republican, right, left, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It just seems like a huge distrust in these pillars like the CDC, the WHO, the government in general, the FDA. Everyone has just become so guarded and concerned and distrusting. Are you seeing that in the younger population?
Yeah, I'm seeing other things like a lot more anxiety in general. Stuff with the closest relationships in teenagers' life is the peer bonds. And they took that away. So they took away sports, they took away extracurriculars. They said, sit in your room away from your friends. And what that did to a lot of teenagers is really, really terrible. As far as distrust in institutions, more push from the parents. I mean, myself I got 2 COVID shots. I got the booster. I got, when it was new, when I was first back on campus, I wore a mask. It was a fitted N95 mask, and I wore a welder's helmet. I was really, really in. And then throughout this whole process, I was just whoa, I was duped. Not to say that COVID was nothing, of course, but the way that it was kind of presented was just something that really opened my eyes up. And I became, just like you're saying, I became a lot more skeptical. It opened my eyes up to the way that funding works and the big pharma and stuff. It was probably good in the long run, but I think that for the teenagers, I think that they're just from their parents. I think it's more their parents are oh, hold on, this is something, and it passes down to them. I don't hear too many, thank God I don't have a lot of students who've had really dangerous, bad reactions to COVID or the vaccine or anything like that. So I haven't seen that as much as from the parents.
Yeah. And that brings us to what I think is going to be the focus of this whole season and probably the rest of my career. And that's mental health. And again, I'm an internal medicine doctor by training, but my purpose in life is to help as many people as I can in whatever way I can. And I am just watching the mental health of our society crumble before my eyes. When all of this started and we didn't know anything, and we're not here to talk about what happened, but we cannot ignore this transformational experience the entire world went through. And the outcome of that transformation is exactly what I predicted. And if you guys listen back to Sapien podcast before, which we released during that time and got removed, if you can find them, I think they're on YouTube. But my biggest message about everything was we're forgetting about the mental health of people. Yeah. You can fear something that attacks the body, right? And by building barriers and protecting ourselves and our bodies, we completely failed our mental and our spiritual health. And failed. We forgot about it. I don't know. It's as if no one even considered it. And, there's this idea, well, we have to save every single life no matter what. No matter what is a big statement. Because when you compromise the mental health of young children, you put them down an entire life of struggling and dealing with that. It's traumatic, right? We acknowledge childhood trauma, physical abuse, sexual abuse, being shunned. We acknowledge all of these weird behaviors that parents and adults can do to children that destroy their ability to be a successful adult. And we work hard to discuss it and work on it. And yet we make policy that doesn't consider that at all, right? And that's what was so alarming. And I see it in my clinic all the time. It's the mental health struggle. You and me, when you came to me, that was one of our main conversations. The mental health aspect is probably the most important part of healthcare, especially now. What are you doing with these kiddos? Are you guiding them? Do you provide them books? Are you look, you're a very inspirational guy, so are you coaching them? I'm just curious how you again approach the young kids, because I struggle with it in my, as a doctor. It's very hard to know what to do with a 16-year-old that's afraid to go outside, and then you educate them on everything and they're like, no, I get it, but I'm afraid to go outside.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, let me get you into therapy. Well, insurance doesn't cover the therapy. Oh, well, what? And then, hey, you want to put them in an antidepressant that's going to numb them and sedate them and make them, suppress their sexual function and make them gain weight. It's just like a nasty mess. Yeah. I feel compromised in their care. Where's your head on this? Because you're dealing with them every day.
Yeah. So, like I walk down the halls of my school and I'm like Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm very popular at my school. Kids are coming up to me all the time, want to talk to me about what's going on in their lives. And then I kind of formalized it too. And I have a calendar that I put out on like Calendly in the beginning of the year. And I have lunch with a different student every day. So it's cool. So it's just the two of us and we sit down and we just talk about what's going on in their lives. So I think that seeing that I like actually care, like it actually helps me too, to like connect with them, connect the materials to them and stuff. But I walk them through on a individual basis. But the stories are terrible. And I used to teach in East LA in like the hood. And now I'm at this like kind of hoity-toity private school in the west side of LA. But there's problems there, problems here. But yeah, the over-medication issue is a big one for me. Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you, but the problems that more poor people and rich people suffer the same exact problems. No one is immune to what happened over the last 5 years. I just want people to understand that, because I have both populations and it's the same. Yeah. The money doesn't guard you. The poverty doesn't make it worse. It's all a huge mess.
Yeah, it was actually great. I was friends with a woman. She's an influencer, a teacher on Instagram too, named Brittany Caldwell, and she had taught an all-black school in Atlanta, and I'm at this like white religious school in Jewish school in the West Side, and we actually blended our classrooms over Zoom. It was super cool, and they were talking like they had so much in common. So yeah, absolutely what you're saying. But the over medication is, I think that what happens is the same thing about like I trusted my doctor. Doctor was like, hey, give the vaccine. It wasn't you at the time, but like give the vaccine for this, give the vaccine to your kids, your baby. Do this. And I trusted so much, of that. And I think that what happened with mental health is the same thing. Parents are like, oh, my child's suffering. What do I do? What do I do? I don't know where to go from here. And a lot of people, they're not like us. They're not listening to medical podcasts and reading all these books and stuff like that. They're just going to trust the doctor. So I had a lunch meeting with a girl last year, and she was 17. And she had been on an antidepressant, an anti-anxiety, and an anti-ADHD medication since she was 12, straight through. So her whole brain, all it knows is these exogenous chemicals going into her body. And it's like, that's not uncommon. It's very, very, very common. And I just put these ideas in their head. Like, do you ever want to get off this? How would you? Not telling you that you should. I don't push ideas, even on my social media. You say, like, I don't push ideas, but I do push you to think. So I challenge it. And I do a lot of that. And then I encourage them to do a lot of the stuff that you talk about, like Sapien stuff, like going outside, what's in your diet, how do you eat, getting lots of sleep, like that kind of stuff. I promote to my students all the time. It's really cool because some of them do it. They start doing like ice baths and cold showers, and they come in, they're like, oh, I felt great. I did a cold shower this morning. They're like high five, and I'm like, yeah, let's go. And that kind of stuff is really, really neat. So I see the students that do it, then they do have like some level of getting better, and then they promote it. And so I have a whole bunch of weirdos around my classroom. These kids are doing it.
It's such a beautiful thing to teach them young. I mean, yeah. I think the overprescription of pharmaceuticals for mental health is obviously a problem for all ages. I don't prescribe to kids, and I never would. And I never would be a pediatric doctor because I feel like so much of what they do is compromised. I'd love to get a pediatrician that's willing to talk about this stuff. So if any of you guys know someone that's willing to come talk to me, please, please, please. It's just really hard to get doctors to open up about this stuff. And that's not to say that pediatricians are doing it all wrong. No, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is when someone is suffering, depression, anxiety, all the things that a kiddo goes through maturing, and especially in this weird, bizarre environment that they just went through. We need tools to help them. You just described the tool. It's called talk therapy. And you're offering talk therapy to your students. It's an amazing thing you're giving yourself. Another point about that, well, before I get there, you're giving talk therapy to your students. The doctors that they go to don't have tools. Like I mentioned, it's very hard to access therapy. Therapy should be a quick referral. It should be covered by every insurance plan, especially if it's children, but every insurance plan. We should be aggressively promoting all sorts of talk, communication therapy. It should be available to everyone. There's tons of people that want to provide it. Everyone needs it. And yet there's no coverage. No coverage. So it's amazing that you offer it. But my point about it is doctors don't have tools. And so they do this polypharmacy thing. I'm going to treat each problem, each symptom with a drug. And it delays the ability to grow and mature on an emotional and a spiritual level. And that's my problem, is we're going to have more and more people that have never gone through the shadow work, the internal work, the work you need to do to fix the things that you might not even think about, but you kind of have to like explore your mind. You have to have these deep conversations. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, I think it seems like it works from what I've seen, and also just everything I know about medicine, everything I know about human beings and what's going to help them flourish. I pay attention to this, a lot of the same people, I guess influencers, but people who are credible, who talk about this stuff. So I just try to implement. That's essentially the same thing I do with all the controversial issues. I take ideas from, like Jordan Peterson or someone like that, and I condense it down to like make sense to a 16-year-old, and I give it to him. And for this, I'll take ideas from you or, Andrew Huberman or Peter Attia or whoever it is, and I take that and I condense it down to like how does it make sense for a 16-year-old, and I pass it on to them. I'm like an intermediary between all these like geniuses and then the 16-year-olds. I'm like an interpreter. That's kind of the way I see my job.
Or we could call you a thought leader.
I guess.
That's what my sister's a huge fan of. And when I told her like, oh, this guy Will came and then he posted about me, it was so nice of him. And she's like, Will Reusch? Oh my God, I follow him. He's like a thought leader. He's amazing. Because she has kids that are the age of your students. And she's listening to you and being like, oh, a breath of fresh air. And sometimes we're having conversations about what you're talking about, and we're not agreeing with you. Yeah. We're not agreeing with each other, but it's a good conversation, right? And that is what I want. You're a role model of how to communicate. And that's what we need. We need people that can show other people how to have a conversation, whether that's to the masses, or just one-on-one, And I think that's like incredibly critical in promoting ideas of real health, is learning to communicate with each other and resetting that. And I'll say something a bit controversial.
Okay.
We need strong male role models. Whatever you believe about gender, as human beings, we need strong male role models. It doesn't mean this overly masculine, aggressive concept that we had from before. It means someone with backbone, with conviction, with confidence, with sensitivity and compassion, but not like brittle and scared and fear-driven and afraid, And I think that's another thing that you really bring to the table is a strong male role model that's compassionate and sensitive. And I think like kids lack that, and they strive for it. They want it, not as an authority figure, but as someone they can emulate and adapt, even if it's one piece of what you're like, to their, sort of way of operating.
Yeah, well, there's clearly a vacuum, right? Because of the people like Andrew Tate or someone like that, Liver King Andrew Tate, which is kids are like, well, what is like a good real man? And then it's like that. It's like, well, you're missing a whole lot of elements from that. Like that's one element. Like there's the aggression that's needed to kick in a door to save a baby in a burning building, but that same aggression could be used to kick in a door to go attack your ex-girlfriend or something like that. So we, steering that aggression is a really important concept as opposed to just tapping into it, which I think is more like a lot of times what the message that kids are getting, or just go get yours, hustle. It's like, go get your money without a lot of thought about how to get your money. because how you achieve something seems equally or as, or even more important than what you achieve. And I think, trying to get that balance is really crucial. I have 3 sons. Maybe that's why they're 8, 6, and 2. So I take that really seriously about like, I want my kids to be tough and sensitive. They do jiu-jitsu, they compete in jiu-jitsu. And I always say, I want you to be like the kindest guy on the mat and the toughest guy, so you can kind of find that balance. And that's something that I think that I try to promote for my students. I do like these assemblies, 2 or 3 times a year at my school with all the guys in the school. And it's about like, they call them like guys lunches or whatever. And I tell them like this kind of stuff about the idea of being like a sheepdog, as opposed, protecting the sheep and fighting off the wolves type of thing. And it seems to resonate with a lot of the kids.
I think it's critical because with all this discussing about gender and identity and these kind of idols online that are super, super masculine, which essentially is just fighting fire with fire. If you demasculate men and you make all masculinity toxic, and you stop creating a distinction between what is toxic and what is not, and you just start basically selling the concept that being masculine is a toxic, you get you lose these role models, right? So now you have people stepping into the vacuum and they're fighting fire with fire. They're going too far in that direction. They say super inflammatory stuff, things that aren't quite relevant to a message of like being a family person, being a community person, being a strong man, being a loving husband, loving father, blah, 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 all the things that we're trying to promote. They don't make those distinctions. They sort of throw everything at that to kind of battle this demasculating culture. And frankly, that's what's going on. And it's multifaceted, probably a little too much for this podcast because like we're watching testosterone levels drop precipitously over the last decades. We're seeing a lot of issues with fertility and men are in deep trouble when it comes to their mental health. Suicide rates are extraordinary. Gun violence with males are extraordinary. I mean, it's what's going on to the males as a result of should not be dismissed. We are suffering disproportionately in certain avenues. And it's like, it's important to understand that when you have a battle and discussion about equality, you don't want to forget about who we are as Homo sapiens. Like we are animals that evolved on this planet over millions of years. And only 10,000 years ago did we start, or so, well, that's a fun conversation as well, but tens of thousands of years ago did we start living the way we do in agriculturally based communities. We lived for millions of years as hunter-gatherers, like millions of years. That's how we're built. That's our genetics, that's our neurochemistry, our biology. And so when you start going too far in the waters of this, these ideas, these political ideas, social ideas, and you forget the ancestral backbone on which we have evolved, everything starts falling apart. And I think that's actually a huge foundational problem of our mental health issues is that we've lost that anchor point to how we evolved.
Yeah, something that I've noticed with young men, so this would be millennials and Gen Z, the age that I teach and the age that kind of looks at my social media podcast stuff is it's video games, lots of video games, it's lots of social media, and it's lots of pornography. And that combination, it satisfies like the dopamine receptors to some degree. You get sense of adventure and you're doing something like accomplishing some sort of physical feat through your hero's journey to some degree in a video game, but it's not real, and social media, you're getting interactions with people, but it's not real. And then pornography, there's a lot of things have come up with my students where, like it was hard, we're like the same age. It was hard to get like access to pornography. Like, you have to like sneak it from like a Barnes and Noble. One of your friends would be the lookout and you have like a little magazine to keep it under your bed or whatever. But now, I mean, you have to actively avoid it like Neo in the Matrix is sent at you every way. And my students, 17 years old, they all have a laptop and they go to their room with their laptop and they don't open up about it too much, but they do. When they do, it's ubiquitous. I mean, pornography is an everyday occurrence. It's a constant occurrence. And that warps their whole idea of what relationships are, how women should be treated, what women are supposed to look like, what men are supposed to look like. I mean, it is this fantasy world. They're living in a fantasy world of pornography and video games and social media. Social media where I can say whatever I want to you and terrible things to you, and you can't do anything back to me. Like, they think that's the way the real world works. It's not. You know, the way that video games work was you can fall off this building and you're fine, and you're not. You know, and then the way pornography works is what you can do with women and treat women and everything. And I think that, like, they spend more time in those worlds than they do in the real world. So which one is actually real according to their brain and their psyche, and how does that affect their mental health? It's a really big problem that I've noticed with the young people.
Absolutely. And all that you just mentioned is affecting the mind in negative ways, maybe some positive ways. You know, it goes both ways. We can't control that. Yeah. But what we can control is how we treat our body. I'm saying we can't control it because it's good luck trying to get a kid to not look at porn.
It's going to be around
forever, social media. Yeah. Like, these things are, you know, so my whole concept is, like, move forward, right? It's not like, oh my God, this is so bad, we have to limit it and censor it. No. Cat's out of bag. Let's adapt. And learn how to live in this world successfully. So the mind-body-spirit connection. So the mind is being stimulated. The dopamine is rushing. There, you know, certain communication needs and interactions are being met. They're not using their body. And these sedentary, you know, the sedentary lifestyle. But it's like they're not using their bodies. They're not, these kids the obesity rates in childhood are astronomical, multifaceted, but for sure because of the lack of physical activity. They're not breathing. They're not in nature at the levels that we were. They're disconnected from what it feels like to work physically hard. You know, people don't realize, or maybe they do, or maybe they forgot, that by working your body, by challenging yourself physically, it calms the mind and it centers the spirit. You know, going and lifting really hard is not just to get muscles. Going in for a crazy hard run until you're out of breath and you're struggling is not just for your cardio. It's for your mental. It's for your spiritual balance. So, you know, I know you do jiu-jitsu and you got your young kiddos in it. Yeah. I don't. I do the lifting and the running, and I play basketball, and I do some other things physically, but that's always been my anchor point. Like, going through medical school, I said I will finish medical school and residency. Each step of the way, I will be in better shape. Why did I say that? I said that I said that because I saw all of the people graduating from medical school and residency, and they all were like, I gained 20, I gained 30. Hey, I got into this residency, but like they looked awful compared to their pre-picture. And I was like, you cannot become a doctor, a healer, and a leader in the community by overemphasizing just the academic part and the career part and letting your body crumble. That you're not accomplishing what you think you are. You're kind of being hustled, because by the time you're done with all that, you're physically incapacitated to some degree, and you're always going to be chasing. You're going to be like, man, I just spent 10 years becoming a doctor, and now I got to work these 50 pounds off, you know, but I got to have kids because I just spent all my youth. It's hard. So, like, tell me, like, how did you find, like, what is your relationship with that physical component? Obviously, it's important to you. Yeah. Was it always been jiu-jitsu? You know, you've talked to me a lot about it. So.
Yeah. Well, growing up, I was a very, very weak kid. We had like the presidential fitness stuff, and I was always at the very bottom of my class. I had issues with like essentially malnourishment. Like my parents are very they're like peacemakers. They're very like Rousseauian, I suppose. So they kind of let me steer the way. This is kind of crazy, Doc. I didn't eat a fruit or a vegetable until I was in my 20s. Not a single one. Not a single fruit or vegetable.
Why?
Because I didn't like them.
Watermelon?
Didn't like it.
What?
I don't know if I ever had it, but it was one of those things where I was like, I don't like this. And my parents just go, oh, okay, you don't have to eat it. Here's a hot dog or whatever it is. So I ate like hot dogs, and I ate grilled cheese sandwiches, and I ate pizza. And maybe like, no, that's probably like, I mean, I didn't even like eat like a hamburger until I was like 17 or 18 years old. It was bad. So imagine what that does to your body. I mean, I couldn't run more than like 100 yards or something without getting like wheezing. You know, I couldn't do a pull-up. I couldn't do a push-up. It was really, really bad. And then in my early 20s, I got into like lifting a little bit, and I started to eat like, romaine lettuce from time to time and stuff like that. It was really wild. And then in my early 20s, I got sick. I got sick. I had something called intracranial hypertension, which is basically my brain mixed too much spinal fluid, and it was a real process. I had a whole bunch of surgeries. They finally figured it out. But when I was sick and I was in a hospital room for something weeks, even months on end, I was like, wow, I was dumb. What was I doing? I could have been physically active, and now I can't. So it was that idea of like, once something's removed from you, then you appreciate it. It's that Confucius quote, like a healthy man wants 10,000 things and a sick man wants one thing. So once I got my health back, I just went all in. So I started running. I started, working out in better ways, like not just like bench pressing for like to go on the beach, but like actually, hill sprints and stuff. Then I got into martial arts when I was like 27 or something like that. I did karate as a kid, but it was nonsense. And I got into like boxing, Muay Thai, and then jiu-jitsu. And I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, about 13 years ago. And now it's like, if I don't work out, if I miss like a day, it's okay. But if I miss 2 days in a row, I really feel like there's something off. Probably some level of vanity element of that, but really it is just, I just don't feel right. I just don't feel right. And if I eat garbage, I eat, really healthy. I follow actually the Sapien diet. It's on my refrigerator. And when I'll go off like, on like a, whatever, it's like a celebration. I'll eat nonsense and everything like that, but I'll go right back in. And because I've been on a ketogenic diet, I've cycled in and out of it. I'm pretty metabolically flexible where, if I don't eat for a day, 24 hours or something, I feel fine, like really fine. So I can kind of cycle in and out. But now I can't imagine not living a life that's like active, eating right and stuff like that. And that's the way my poor kids, it's like, that's their life. That's just the way that it is. There aren't Skittles at my house because we don't even view that as food. They go trick or treating, we take it and we're just like, guys, we're throwing it all in the garbage. And they understand. They're like, yeah, that's just nonsense. So, but it's interesting. Going back to the school thing is like, took our kids to like open house at their school, and it's just candy, everything, sprees and airheads and everything like that. And at my school, it's like Wednesday, it's just donut day. There's donuts everywhere. And I was like, it's like, once you understand nutrition a bit, you just look around, you're like, this is crazy how mainstream this is. This is nuts. Here's a whole bunch of donuts. Now, 16-year-old boy, here's a whole bunch of donuts. Now sit at this desk under fluorescent lights and listen to some boring person in the front talk about physics on a whiteboard. It's like, and then when they don't do it, there's something wrong with that kid. It's like, there's something wrong with the kid? Like, there's nothing, that kid's normal. That's why he's acting up. So that's like and that's just everywhere. That's just everywhere. So it's just like the water. It's the water that these fish are swimming in, and then we say like, there's something wrong with your gills. It's like, no, it's polluted water.
Great analogy. Yeah. And it's so pervasive, because that was my biggest gripe at the hospital. I'm just like, how can you feed people recovering from surgery this garbage, this hot garbage with no protein, no collagen, no vitamins, and then, full of processed sugars, not even real sugar, processed sugars, and then yelling at everyone because they have high blood sugar. It's their fault, and like, you're feeding the stuff to them, and then go to the doctor's lounge, it's all garbage. Go to the cafeteria, it's all garbage. They're trying to do something nice for the nurses, and they bring them garbage food instead of something delicious. It's just, the food culture is completely destroyed, and that's probably the fundamental part of our bodies failing us. But what we can do, other than obviously listen to former Sapien podcast, episode 11, we'll give you 45 minutes about a basic nutrition approach, which we call the Sapien diet, which Will follows.
Love it.
And it's very, very simple. I'm not going to belabor it here today, but guys, it's worth just establishing the basic concepts of a low carbohydrate diet, high protein, embrace healthy fat, and do some fasting. And of course, all of this means no processed garbage. No processed food. It is so important. I say garbage. I'm not being dramatic. It is garbage. Skittles are garbage. Don't feed that to your kids or to yourself. It is critical to remember that. But I really wanted to focus on the physical part, because I think there's something special about martial arts and jiu-jitsu. And it's similarly, for me, it's competitive, like playing basketball or even competitive lifting. I know that you're not so into it, but I'm pretty into it. And basically it's by competing, you lose.
Yeah.
And you learn to lose. Like, when I play basketball and I lose, I get upset. And now I am simultaneously happy for my friend who won. Or I'm like, wow, that was an amazing finish. Like, that's great. That behavior of being happy for someone else, even though you lost, it teaches you how to succeed. That behavior of winning and feeling like, oh man, I lost a bunch of games, but I just won one. Like I got my butt kicked in jiu-jitsu, and then you get that one win, and like that's the satisfaction that teaches you how to be successful. So there's that competitive part, and when you're competing with your body where you're like leaving it all on the line and you're just covered in sweat and everything hurts, there is nothing, there's no drug, there's no community experience, all the other stuff we talk, there's nothing that will ever compare to exerting your body physically in a competitive environment, being grateful for the competition regardless of the outcome, whether you win or lose. You're just grateful you got to compete and you got to use your body. Yeah. And I think there's something so potent and completely lost. It's like that dopamine rush, that satisfaction they get when they beat the video game, or they don't feel it connected to their entire body pumping endorphins, the crazy rush of dopamine and serotonin, and God only knows what's going on in your brain when you've left it all on the table, right? I think that physical experience is a holotropic state of consciousness. It is a state of consciousness that connects you to the whole, that connects you to other humans, nature, God, whatever you want to call it. It is a physical way, without any substances, to achieve a state closer to this sense of togetherness, sense of consciousness. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And I think the young kids at the school I'm at now, like a more like elite school, they're very failure averse, because they have to have a perfect transcript to get into the perfect school so they get the perfect job so they can have the perfect life. Like that's the way they think this works. It's not the way it works at all. Like that, if that's the way, if that's your pathway, then you have no grit. Then you don't know what's going to happen when life throws you an obstacle. And, lifting weights, like you're going to fail a lot. And, playing basketball, you're going to fail a lot. And jiu-jitsu, martial arts, like you're going to get knocked out. You're going to get submitted. Like there's no way around it. Skateboarding's another great one. Like, cause you're going to fall. You can't just, I don't care if you're a great athlete. LeBron James can't just pick up a skateboard and just do a kickflip. Like you have to fail a lot. I actually give an assignment to my seniors. I just gave it to them yesterday. So it's due at the end of the year, and it's called the Process Project. So they have to pick one skill. It can be physical or mental, and that they're terrible at, and they have to work at it and document the process. At the end of the year, they have to share a documentary of them getting from terrible to good. So they've walked that pathway. And one thing, because I did that with bowling. It was at my wife's like a Christmas party or something like that, and I was just didn't know how to bowl, which is embarrassing because I was like a 35-year-old, like it looked like I'd be capable enough to bowl, and I didn't. And I was like, I bowled like a 40 or something like that. I was super embarrassed. So the next day, dropped the kids off or whatever, and I was like, I'm going. My wife's like, where are you going? I'm like, going to the bowling alley. So I went to the bowling alley.
The Big Lebowski over here.
Like little kids are coming up like, oh, mister, can I help you? I'm like, get away from me. And I like read it, and then I learned like little things like those arrows actually matter. And I'm 6'3", so like instead of dropping it, maybe roll it. And then I was able to bowl. And I was like, well, now that I know how to bowl, like whatever it is, I can learn the trombone. I can learn how to pole vault, because it's essentially the same process of like failing and learning and getting better and getting better and getting better over time. And I want my students to know that process can be applied in any direction, mental or physical. So I love giving that every year.
And that's really it, is learning to have some ability to push yourself and get to this goal, whether it's something fun like bowling or something serious like becoming a doctor, becoming a teacher, whatever your big goals are. So let's get to the third part. So, I mean, I think that what's missing in the classroom, what's missing in medicine, and what's missing in our society is spirituality. Mm-hmm. I think, there's a lot of talk these days. Jordan Peterson talks about it. Most famously, I think it's the death of God, right? The End of Faith by Sam Harris in the early 2000s, I think, was kind of like this benchmark of like, he was starting to talk about how people are really losing their connection with God. And at that time, I was very interested in religion and like trying to figure out my relationship with it. I'm a Jew. I grew up Jewish, not really religious, but always like very affiliated with that part of myself. And Went to Israel for my birthright trip and was like, what is this place? Was not into it for a variety of reasons. I didn't like going into a city where there's a Christian quarter and a Muslim quarter and a Jewish quarter and everyone's kind of hostile to each other and doesn't talk that much.
Yeah,
and then
divisive.
there's like a bunch of guys with guns that are from the UN and then a bunch of guns from this and then a bunch of guns over here. And it's just too hostile and negative. And I'm like, this isn't spiritual. Like, it's kind of silly. And I understand that for some, going to the Wailing Wall is very much an emotional, spiritual connection. But for me, I'm sorry, the 4,500 guns present within like a 500-yard radius made me not feel spiritual at all. And so for me, it was quite a disappointing experience because I was really hoping to find some faith because I had just read that book and I was like, oh boy, this is an ominous sign. Yeah. And so now, almost 2 decades later, we definitely see less and less, people that are connected to to religion, and so with the fall of that organizing structure, I think that's what Peterson called it, organizing structure. You have these other structural things that are starting to fill in. Everything from political organizations to organizations that are only focused on someone's sexual orientation, or organizations that are like about an ethnicity or something like the organizing structures that are starting to take the place of religion are very polarizing. They're like, I used to say religion, they're like, they don't support gay people or like they treat women worse. And I'm like, yeah, but like the new organizing structures are completely ostracizing everyone except for their small little niche. And this tribal, these tribal brains of ours, these primitive tribal brains, they fill this vacuum of leadership and organization with like some horrible stuff that seems really good on the surface because it's about equality and this and that. And in reality, it's just ostracizing everyone else and saying, hey, my group is cool and give us everything we deserve, but like everyone else, forget them. And I hate that. Because it divides us, right? So my thing is spirituality is something that should be talked about, and it shouldn't be just limited to religion or to, hey, I don't believe in religion, I'm just spiritual. That's also not quite a thing, right? Spirituality is I sit down with the people that I educate and I look them in the eye and I give them my time. When you're giving them that, you're giving them your spirit. You're giving them your energy. When I sit down with a patient, I'm giving them my spiritual energy. And, we found that through a variety of different ways. I'd love for you to talk about it. Obviously, guys, this podcast is going to be a lot about psychedelic medicine, not this episode as much, but I want you to talk about it because I know that that's a part of your life, at least on some level. But I also know that you have other avenues to spirituality. Yeah. And it's very interesting because I think that's what people are connecting to you. They're connecting to you because instead of promoting that, preaching that, you use that as a guide to promote these cognitive and intellectual pursuits and physical pursuits, right? So without that spirituality, without that anchor to the unknown, that the anchor to things of faith and belief, you're actually vapid. You're looking for you're going to keep searching. You're never going to find it because science doesn't have all the answers, like we said. Yeah. There is always going to be questions. Well, maybe not always, but at this point, we don't have any evidence for where consciousness comes from. Yeah. We have no evidence for God present, yes or no. It's all just belief. It's a belief system. And in science, we love to say, well, this is our standing theory and this is what we're going to do. That's a belief, guys. Yeah. Science believes that consciousness comes from the brain, from a complex process of neurochemicals and electrical stimuli, and that's consciousness comes from. There's zero evidence.
Yeah, prove it.
No, there's zero. Yeah. Prove it. They've tried. There's nothing. Yeah. There's nothing to prove it. And yet that is the theory. And so I'm going to manipulate your brain with drugs to try to fix that. No, you're missing the point. That's why religion is important. Mm-hmm. That's why concepts about God are important. That's why concepts about belief and faith are so critical and cannot be completely forgotten about. Even if we're going to let religion die or whatever, we have to fill that void with something.
Yeah, and even like atheist social science like Jonathan Haidt or someone like that says that we have a container for a belief in something bigger than ourselves. So if, that's, Peter Boghossian, who wrote a book, How to Create Atheists, is saying stuff like this. And a lot of the kind of woke movement, which, lack of a better term, that started with the New Atheist movement. I read Dawkins' God Delusion. I read, Harris and Hitchens and all that kind of stuff because I'm a searcher for truth. So I was like, all right, so let's just, I was raised in like a Presbyterian household where we went to church on Sundays, but that's about it. Like I didn't have any kind of connection relationship with like a higher power really. But then I read all these books and I was trying to search for truth. And I watched a lot of debates and, Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson and then Stephen C. Meyer and Rabbi Wolpe talking with a whole bunch of different, atheists and stuff like that, Matthew Dillahunty or whoever it might be. And essentially, I had some, and then I even had some psychedelic experiences. And I think one of the things that was keeping me from any kind of like faith, I suppose, was saying like, it's impossible, stuff in the Bible or whatever. That's impossible, whether it's like virgin birth or whatever. It's like nonsense, Jonah eaten by a fish. I was like, that's all nonsense. But when you do psychedelics, I mean, you can, it puts a crack in you and humbles you of what is possible or not. And I had experience where I was like, wow, I don't know anything. I don't know what up and down is. It humbled me in a way that it opened up my mind to be like, okay, so maybe things are possible I didn't know to be possible. And over a long, like kind of pathway, a very, personal journey, I came to the conclusion for myself that I do not believe that we are just molecules that just happen to react. I think that I believe in free will. Sam Harris talks a lot about how, free will is just an illusion. And, Dawkins talks about that. I don't agree. It doesn't feel that way. So whatever, maybe I'm delusional. But once I took that stance and I was like, I'm agnostic. And then I was like, okay, well, hold on. I just kept pulling at this thread. And essentially what it got down to was I need an operating system. The way I like to think about it is an OS. So I need an operating system when it comes to morality. Because I can't just go with my gut. I talk to a lot of people, they say like, well, just go with your gut. Your gut knows what is right and wrong. It's like, does it? Because I ask my class, I say, who is the worst person in human history? They all say Hitler. And I go, did his gut tell him that he was the evil? Or did everywhere he goes in late 1930s Germany, everyone was smiling faces, crying, oh my gosh, thank you so much, thank you so much. How would your gut say you're going to be remembered as the worst person ever? That's going to get warped because that's not your paradigm. So it can't be my gut. So I need some sort of operating system for how to understand this. And I think I'm just naturally inclined toward Christianity because it's the way I was raised to some degree. I'm more familiar with those. But I have apprehensions about religion. I have apprehensions even about saying that I'm a Christian. I like the idea, I like the story, and I like the depth of the story of Jesus. So for me, that one works very, very well as like if I give an assignment for my class and I say like, all right, so here's a book report on whatever, Great Gatsby or something like that. And I want you to make a poster board and I hold up, this is an A+. This is a perfect representation of what I'm looking for. Jesus is essentially like that. For me, it's like a role model of like, okay, remember those old bracelets? What would Jesus do? Like that kind of idea. And once I started like to trickle down that road a little bit into Christianity. And as I did, my life just got better. So as I abandoned this old operating system of a lot of like, I don't really know. I'm kind of just figuring my way out of like this operating system of my map, my OS is toward being as close to Jesus and following his teachings as possible. I became a better husband. I became a better father. I became a better teacher. I became healthier. I had a reason. I had an assignment. I had a reason to live. Like I just got better. So in that way, in like objective ways, it made me better. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to lean into this then. And I'm going to promote that just because I believe it works. And if someone's really lost and they don't have a map, Jordan Peterson talks a lot about maps. They have no map for where to go. I'm like, try this map. It might not work for you, but it might. So I just like, try this map. Or I say like, what is your map? It's like, I don't have one or I don't need one. It's like, I think you do need one. So you better find a map real quick. And I can get along really well with people that have another map, whether it's, the Jewish people that I am deeply close to, Orthodox Jewish people that I work with and stuff. My next door neighbors are devout Muslims and I talk to them about faith because as long as you have a map, I feel like I can connect with you a lot better than people who are just like, I'm winging it. It's It's like, no, you're just wandering around with no aim. And that is harder to connect with. So it's very odd that I found it, but I didn't find it like, I didn't seek out to be like a Christian. I wasn't like, I'm going to become a Christian. I'm going to listen to, worship music and get it. It's like, it happened backwards. It happened the other way. It's like, I was trying to prove it wrong, and it failed for me pretty miserably. Yeah.
That's a really interesting kind of journey because it's about right back to what I think you're doing for you found a role model.
Yeah.
Right. You found a male role model or a life role model. Right. And it's not really about believing like every word to be true. It's about having some kind of organizing structure to guide your day-to-day feelings that don't have answers, that like oftentimes our feelings and our, complications, there's no clear answers. So just having a role model or an organizing structure or a map, as you said, it gives you guidance. It gives you that true north that I think without it, it's very easy for governments, religions, organizations, gurus to hijack your mind.
Yeah.
Food, drugs, these things hijack your mind, and to protect your mind and to be able to explore it, right, through physical, intellectual, and spiritual modalities, you have to have some kind of structure.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be an ideological, every word is true, or, oh my God, and if you don't believe me, you're going to hell sort of thing. It's not about that. It's about you having some framework to move through life and be able to solve and navigate.
Yeah, I don't think about it like, if you don't believe this, then you're going to, it's like, if you don't believe this, or if you don't follow this kind of structure, it's not like you're going to go to hell like a punishment. It's like, no, you're going to go to hell, like, cause you don't know where else you're going. So you're going to fall off a cliff cause you don't even see the cliff coming.
We talked about the mind, we talked about the body, and we talked about the spirit. Again, I think that's where you and me connect. I think we're so like-minded despite us being different religions, different professions, entirely different lives, born in different places. We share this concept of focusing on all three components, accepting that all three components are critical, and integrating those three. I thank you so much for sharing those stories. I thank you for the work you do with kids, because every single person you touch, whether it's in the classroom or online, is so lucky. Because
metaphorically.
Yes. Yes. Just kidding. Metaphorically, but all jokes aside, I think that the conviction and the lack of fear to say this stuff, even sharing your story here about your journey to spirituality, your journey with your own personal health, it's inspirational. I know so many people are going to be excited, and yeah. So thank you. Why don't you tell everyone how they can find you, because we've plugged you a bunch, but I don't know that we've ever said how they can follow along.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doc. It's just my name, Will Reusch, Reusch, on Instagram. The podcast is called Cylinder Radio. The idea is that it's different angles. It makes a different shape. So try and show that there's a lot of complexity to complex ideas. And then my website is just my name, williamreusch.com. There's a whole bunch of downloads. I have stuff like how to use social media in a more positive way. I have one that's called Debate to Dialogue, which is how to turn contentious conversations and difficult conversations into productive conversations. And I'm also going to have curriculum on there for homeschools and even to implement in the classroom. So everything I'm doing, I'm going to try and make available to people, because I believe it. I believe that scale matters when you're doing something important.
Absolutely. Thank you, Will. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you next time.